All right, good. I'm going to go ahead and get us going. Josh, are we ready to go? Are you? I know you've got the WebEx going. You ready for YouTube?
Yes, sir. We're good to go.
Awesome. Good. Good. Well, first off, folks, and I'll just officially kind of call this meeting to order. It's 5:08 p.m. On January the 21st. It's our first Citizens Utility Billing Review and Ad Hoc Committee, Advisory Committee. We've got quite a few people online in addition to the committee itself. Before we get into, I guess, item number one, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a roll call, and then as we're waiting for, I guess, one more to connect on, and just make sure you say you're here, and then I'll introduce some of the staff that is here as well. We have Mr. Steve Sabo.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
There we go. Miss Denise Hewitt.
Here.
All right. We have Mr. Jimmy Davis.
Here.
Mr. Ralph King.
Here.
All right. Mr. Mark Smith.
Here.
Mr. Patrick O'Day.
Yes, sir.
Miss Jennifer Sheffield.
Here.
All right. And I think we're waiting on Miss Julie Ward. I'm looking real quick to see. Haven't seen her join in yet, but we'll do that when she comes on. In addition to that, for those that are the citizens on here, and I'm probably going to miss a couple of these staff members that I may not know. So I want to introduce some of them to you. You'll get to know them over the next coming months, but we have Mr. Joshua Lee, who's our communications director. We have John McCarter, our interim finance director.
Hey, everybody.
Let's see, Mr. Darren Coker, he's our city attorney.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, I got Miss Nancy Massey. She's our utility billing director. What's your official title, Nancy? Is that right?
No, my official title is the water billing and collections manager, but
there you go.
Whatever you want to call me, Mayor, that's fine.
All right, I just want to make sure it's right. All right, good deal. Let me see who else is here. Daniel McGinnis. He is our folks in IT to make sure that you're good and connected. And then I see, Julie, are you on board? Oh, mute. Somebody unmute her. Still on mute.
Yes.
There we go.
I am here. I apologize for my tardiness. I had a call that ran over.
Hey, never apologize for taking care of business. That's what I always say. All right, but thank you. Good to see you. Just doing some introductions of folks that are online and as well as city staff. And let's see, Josh, who did I miss? Let me make sure.
I can jump in, Mr. Mayor. We got Dara Eng here, who's also in utility billing. She's our assistant utility billing manager. We also have Melanie Lawson, who's the executive assistant in the finance department. She'll be helping us out, taking notes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So again, thank you all for being online. Today's meeting, just by way of understanding, is really our first meeting with this group. Obviously, it's just kind of to get to know what our charge is. City Council has approved this citizens group and kind of where we're going, set some expectation levels. I will tell you, we've got some work to do. We've got some quick work to do. We need to, by way of City Council, we have a scope. We'll go over that a little bit. In addition, in approving the 8-member board, and we'll go, when we go through the scope, we'll see how that works. Council did approve a chair. Mr. Sabo, you're it. And then beyond that, we will need to select a vice chair. It might take next meeting to do that. It'd be good to do that tonight, but if we don't, I'm sure we can get to that next meeting. And so you can see the agenda that's up on the screen now. We kind of want to roll through this. It's not my intent for this meeting to go super long. This is meant to kind of give you an intro of where we are. And then I want to set some expectations on the back end of this of what we need at the city council level for this group to do, especially early on relative to the Raftellus report. So with that, let me just, John, if you put the scope and charge up real quick, we'll kind of walk through this. So City Council in their meeting last week approved this as a scope. I know some of you were either at that meeting or online and saw some of this, but I don't want to assume that everybody was. The committee itself, 8 members, all residents here in the city. We have a term of 6 months. I think council said, if we need more than that, we just need to go back and figure out. It's my hope that we won't need that much time. I'm really hoping in the first several months of this, we can get most of our work done and accomplished. Beyond that, the Raftellus, which I think everybody has received their report, as well as staff's response to that report. They have a presentation this coming Monday for City Council. We approved the agenda yesterday, and we're giving ample time for that report from Raftellus to the city. It's very, very important to me as mayor. It's very, very important to our city council that we give this issue its due time in council meetings. So we'll get through our consent agenda, and it's first up on the agenda. So we're gonna tackle it first and give it the time that it needs for Raftellus to get through. Their report itself should be about 30 minutes, but no doubt we'll get into all kinds of questions and answers, questions and input from council during following that. I think John will probably send out calendar invites as well as links for each one of you to be able to follow along online, even though we've got in-person meetings, and you're welcome to come in person. I think you have to get a reservation, if you will, to kind of get in line to make sure that you're here. We're back in-person meetings, but either way, you can either watch it online or you can be here in person to take part of that Raftellus report. So we want to make sure that you're a part of that. So you've got the review, you've got the staff response to the review, and we're going to weigh in as a committee on those. And council is going to be looking for formal recommendations from you regarding those recommendations in the Raftellus report. And I know if you've had a chance to look at it, and I know several of you have probably already read it, if not once, multiple times. But hopefully by Monday, each one of you will have an opportunity to have read through all of that. And if you look at the staff response, there are, and I can't remember the number, it's I don't know, 11, 12, 13 of the recommendations that from a staff standpoint, they either absolutely agree with or they have no opinion on, which, is for us to weigh in. And then there's, I want to say 2, 3, or 4, John can help me on that if there's more than that city may not agree or have issue with or have comments on. And so it's my hope that, and when we get into trying to figure out when we're going to meet next and what our plan of attack from a meeting standpoint, it's my hope that if those 11, 12, 13, whatever that city doesn't have an issue with or agrees with, I'm hoping our group can take that as a block and weigh in on it as a recommendation and move that forward to council and to our staff. One of the things that I don't want to do, while I want to give citizens the opportunity to be a part of this process and weigh in on it, if there's fairly simple things that are in this report that we can move on, I want to get them moving out. I don't want to wait 6 months for council to get action from this group. I want to get it as we move forward. So if there's a block of it that we can do early, that makes sense. For example, updating the, SOP, standing operating procedure. Nancy and staff are already in process of doing that, but we don't want to hold it up from being blessed and move forward, as an example. So I'll be asking for this group to do that fairly quickly, if not at our first meeting. Secondly, I will tell you, Raftellus weighs in on the 3230 plan, specifically, that if we're going to move away from it, they give us several options. That option and anything moving away from it has budget implications for the city council. So I'm going to ask that this group dig in and weigh in on the 3230 plan early. And the reason is if it's got budget implications and it's going to be a change away from 3230 and has any implications whatsoever to the budget, I want council to have that as soon as possible so they can get their heads around what this group is asking for, and then ultimately weighing in on it so they can set the course with staff and budget. If we wait 6 months, 6 months from now puts us in July, that puts us right up against budget time in weighing in on that, and it makes it really difficult on staff to be nimble to implement what council may do. Council is, I will tell you, council is going to wait and hear from this group on 3230 specifically. The other thing that I want to mention, it's not in scope and it's not in the meetings. This is an advisory group, which means this group doesn't set the policy, but it sets recommendations to council. I will say this, council may agree, they may disagree on some of the recommendations that come forward from this group. That's ultimately, that's the elected officials' prerogative. I'm hoping that for the most part, we get agreement between this group and city council. But I do want to set the expectation that they can disagree. We have several advisory groups across the city that council will disagree with from time to time. Planning and zoning is an example of one that they may disagree on a recommendation and overturn something that they do. So I want to set that expectation level that's out there. And then the last thing is provide additional recommendations to the city council as they apply to the utility billing systems, process, and infrastructure that may not be captured in the Raftellus report. I know several of you have read the Raftellus report and you've got questions about, I'll just use this as an example. You've got questions about the meters. You've got questions on how the meters have been installed. You've got questions on how the meters, whether or not they were properly, ready for deployment. That is kind of an all-encompassing scope piece there that keeps us within utility billing, and it keeps us within the processes, and it keeps us within infrastructure. Meters are part of that infrastructure, but it may not have been specifically called out in the Raftellus report. So that's where the group can really dig in and start looking at other types of problems that may or may not exist, throughout our utility billing system. So that's kind of the scope. Our meetings, we need to figure out exactly when do we want to meet. Do we want to meet on a certain Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of a month at a certain time? Seems like 5 o'clock. To me, I told staff one of the things that I didn't want to do was take them necessarily an extra late evening starting at 7. But if we can start things at the end of the business day, like at a 5 o'clock or 5:30, and as citizens, you're finishing up your work, but moving into the evening, and our city staff is finishing a long day, moving into the evening, trying to keep those kind of together. We can talk about that. You can also see down there that all of our meetings, and we'll move into this here in just a minute, all of our meetings are published and posted 24 hours in advance to give the public notice. And then secondly, if you were on the call and on the meeting early, you probably heard Josh and others talk about that this is being recorded. It's being recorded. It's not being broadcast live, but it is being recorded. And these recordings will be released to the public. That's one of the charges that City Council asked for. These will be released within 72 hours following the meeting. Josh can weigh in later if he needs to on, we anticipate these turn around pretty quick. They're actually being recorded in two different formats, one in WebEx. Josh, correct me, but you're also doing this in YouTube as well?
That's correct. I'm actually recording in WebEx on a local drive so that we have a backup, and then directly into YouTube so that we can expedite the publication process.
And that's important because we want to make sure that this is released in its entirety to council, or excuse me, to the public. And so if anybody ever questions whether or not something was altered or changed or whatever, we have a backup to show how that's just simply not the case. As mayor, I will serve as the city council liaison to this. I'm not a voting member of this group. And then we have several staff from both the technical side for utility billing as well as finance and then communications to be a part of this. To make sure that we pull off these meetings. And let me back up. We mentioned, right now we don't have the public online to see this. Council didn't specifically say that had to be, but that may be something that this group internally wants to do. I will leave that to the group to figure out and do if you want to open up the public to view in. As an advisory group itself, advisory committee, it doesn't have to meet the full Texas Open Meetings Act. And Darren will get into some of the public information here in a minute. But if the group says, yeah, we want to open this up where public can watch, I'm going to leave that to the group itself to decide. Like I said, this first meeting is more house cleaning, housekeeping type of stuff. And then the, yeah, and then you guys will select your vice chair. And then on any recommendations coming out of here. So internally with the council, it was me and two council members that set this group apart. And then we talked internally about the scope, and then ultimately what did it need, what did it look like moving forward to city council with any kind of a recommendation. And with 8 people on the group, the immediate question was, well, what if we have a 4-4 tie? What if we vote on something that's 4-4? My immediate response to that was, well, the committee failed. That's not a consensus, that's a dead tie. And if the committee is tied on something, that means our citizens at large may be split 50-50 on something. And that's certainly not the types of outcome that I think the council is looking for. It's not the outcomes that I'm looking for. It could be a straight 5-3 vote, which is a simple majority. I really leaned on this group needs to be more of a consensus with 6 members voting in an affirmative vote to move something forward. And the reason is that forces this committee to work to get consensus. If this committee has consensus, then that's a statement back to council that you have a strong consensus. Obviously, it would be awesome if everything that comes out of this committee is a straight 8-0 vote. But I'm also not naive to think that 100% of every vote is going to be, 8-0. But I think it's important that we have strong consensus moving forward. Because this has been such a hot topic in our community. One of the things that we have got to do as a city as a council, as a mayor, as staff, is we've got to get our citizens and the customers bought in and on board with whatever we need to do to fix some of the systems. I will also say that not 100% of customers across our utility have issues. Some do, some don't. We're trying to get our arms around, exactly what those are. So that's kind of our scope and our charge as we move forward. I will say that I know we put this in here, a selection of the vice chair. Darren, if it's okay with you, I'm going to kind of slide that because I really want to get to your presentation on public information. I want the staff to kind of talk about kind of how and where we got here, and we can talk about a vice chair on the back end. Is that okay?
That's fine with me, and that works out for me because after I do the presentation on public information, I'm going to have to get out of this meeting and jump into the Economic Development Corporation meeting. So I appreciate you letting me go jump into that. If you're okay with moving to that, let me see. John, is it possible that you could give me the ability to share my screen?
I think Josh might have to do that. Absolutely can.
Okay. There we go. Let me see if I can find it. Can everybody see my screen right now? Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, I'm Darren Coker, city attorney, and when Mayor Cole and I were sitting down and talking about this agenda, I thought it'd be appropriate to at least educate and inform a little bit about public information because this is there's some unique nuances with this group because it is an ad hoc committee. And I want to talk about the differences there and sort of the role that the city, the different roles the city has and the committee has when it comes to public information. So in Texas, we have the Texas Public Information Act, and essentially the general notion of the Public Information Act is that information that's written, produced, collected, assembled, maintained, essentially by the city in our official transaction of business is considered public information. Now, some of that information may or may not have to be produced, but it is public information, and there are different rules that apply there. But what's critical here is if it's information that's in the official transaction of business, and it's created, it's by a governmental body, for a governmental body, and I'll get to those in just a moment, or by an individual officer or employee of the governmental body in the officer's employee's official capacity, and the information pertains to official business of the governmental body. Now, with that in mind, I just want to make sure everybody understands that this committee, as an ad hoc committee, is an advisory committee, and Mayor Cole mentioned that earlier. And as such, you are not considered employees of the city, nor are you considered officers of the city with respect to the Public Information Act. So I just want to make sure you understand that. On number 2, it says information that's created for a governmental body and the governmental body owns the information, has the right of access to the information, spends or contributes public money for the purpose. If you're wondering what that's related to, an example of that would be where we enter into a contract with another party, whether it be an engineer or contractor. Raftelis, when we have a contract like that, they may have information of ours in their possession. We own that information, or at a minimum, we have the right to that information. That would be considered public information even though it's not in our possession, it would still be considered public information. So again, this is more in the context, and I want to reiterate that, of the city employees and officers. And so we do have some of our boards and commissions where they actually are officers of the city. That just would not be the case here with respect to the UB committee. So I'm going to go to the next topic here, and the applicability of the Texas Public Information Act to individual committee members. So I'm going to take a step back before I get into this and explain to you something that's a unique title that all employees now have and all of our officers in the city have, we are now, as of 2019, we have a title of Temporary Custodian of Records. This is a new title. It didn't really change the law a whole lot, but it did give a title to people in the city when it came to public information. And what it essentially says is that when we are in possession of public information, for instance, myself or anybody else in the city or officers of the city, that information that's created in the transaction of official business, we are temporary custodians of those records, and we're responsible for protecting those records, preserving those records, being able to produce those records when they're subject to Public Information Act and requested. But the important thing here is the definition of a temporary custodian of record. By law, a temporary custodian of record is an officer or employee of the city. And so in this particular instance, for purpose of the Texas Public Information Act, no member of the body, of this committee is an officer of the city. So as a result, you will not be considered a temporary custodian of records. So with that in mind, though, I do want you to keep in mind that any time during this process throughout this committee, the city sends you anything, whether it's emails, documents that will be used as part of the meeting, the agendas, all of that information that is sent out from the city, city staff, or from Mayor Cole as an officer of the city. Any of that information will be considered public information. Okay, it's just that once you receive it, you're not technically a temporary custodian of records and not responsible for those records necessarily. All that information that is sent or received by the city from any member of this committee will be public information, and it will be subject to public release. And in fact, the city embraces that, and I know the council and Mayor Cole do that as well, because one of their primary concerns about this whole process and doing this committee is to, of course, maintain that transparency, and that includes with the creation and dissemination of public information that's created in this process. So just so you'll understand why this committee is considered different, the Attorney General governs enforces the Texas Public Information Act. And they have opined that departments, agencies, or political subdivisions of a city or a county are subject to the act if the involved entity has rulemaking or quasi-judicial powers. In the city, the boards that would have that type of power would be the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Economic Development Corporation, the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Those are some examples. They actually have, when I say quasi-judicial, they have autonomous jurisdiction in certain matters, whereas this particular committee will, as indicated earlier, will be making recommendations for council consideration. So that being said, although the act is not necessarily applicable to communications amongst individual committee members, I do want to recommend, and I visited with Mayor Cole today to see if what his thoughts were on this, and he completely agreed. There's some recommendations we have here that I think will be more consistent with the intent of the council and making sure that transparency is maintained in this process. So I'm just going to go through these three bullets, and then I'll open it up if anybody has any questions. All committee communications between the city and the committee are considered public information, and the city council's intent is to maintain public transparency throughout this process. These communications, and again, these are communications between the city and the committee, they will be captured and they will be stored on the city system. So that's easy for us. If it's coming out from us to y'all or y'all back to us, we capture it on our system. It ends up being preserved, and it's easy for us to gather that information and respond if there's a request for it. This next bullet is very important. So separate communications amongst committee members, and again, these are communications that would exclude city employees or officers, are not subject to the Texas Public Information Act. And as a result, they will not be captured and stored on the city system. Knowing that, what we're going to do is recommend that what I call offline communications between committee members, that be limited. And the reason we want that limited is because there's no guarantee that information is going to be captured and necessarily available to the public. And I know right now some of you may be thinking, but it doesn't apply to this particular committee, especially if it were in separate communications between the members. But despite that fact, we're still based on this is entitled Best Practices for Transparency. And what we're doing is recommending, again, that be limited. And if those communications do occur, this last bullet is sort of important. So if separate communications occur, what we're recommending is that the email, maybe in the CC, you can copy it and send it to ubcc@pearlandtx.gov. And this IT just created this yesterday so that we would have this ability. And so anytime you are communicating amongst yourselves, if you were to CC that, we will end up receiving it at the city. And then that way it will be, as I said, indicate here, it'll centralize our communications. They will all be in one place. It will help facilitate our efforts to one, make sure that information is available to the public and that transparency is maintained. So that's there are other ways you can obviously do that. You can copy your emails and then send them separately. You can store it on a device and send them separately. However you want to do that. But this is one recommendation that we wanted to provide to the committee. And the UBCC, of course, is Utility Billing Citizens Committee at pearlandtx.gov. And then that way we would have all that communication there. So I know that was a lot to say, and I wanted to do it quickly. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those questions. Mayor Cole.
Yeah, Darren, real quick to reiterate, I guess, both of those two points. Look, we recognize that people on this committee may know each other, may be friends, or may have conversations offline from the committee. You might reach out to the committee chair and say, hey, I want to discuss, A, B, and C at the next meeting. We encourage that. We want you to do that, right? I mean, that's part of communications. You got to be able to do it. Just know and understand my recommendation is to limit that to email, not texting, and include this UBCC. Why? It is forever preserved. It's there. You don't have to worry about somebody coming in and trying to get something off your phone. At the same time, if two of you want to go to lunch for some time, I mean, that's fine. Hey, can I meet you for lunch? That's okay. Those communications are fine. They're not something that'll get caught up in any kind of an issue. But in today's world, where we have public information requests on a daily basis of all kinds, we just got to make sure that you as members of this committee do the best you can to protect not only yourself, but also the city and keep the communications, where they are. So we really recommend the email versus texting and keep it about and make sure that you CC this UBCC email address. So that way we just capture it. And you don't have to worry about it. If you inadvertently delete an email or something off your system, it doesn't matter. The city has captured it. So it's there in case there's a communication or a PIR. We will have PIRs. There's a PIR just about every committee, about every kind of topic throughout the city. There will be. Don't let that stop you from asking the questions that you want to ask in this group. Okay, it's important that you do the work that you do. Almost forget the fact that there are people out there. I will say this, and this is the last thing I'll say on that subject. I have adopted my own policy that I do not put anything in an email that I don't want on Facebook. And so it's real important to keep it about the business, to keep it about the committee and what we're talking about, and not into any other types of things that might be embarrassing, on Facebook. So just, and you may notice a lot of your elected officials you don't see them a lot in a lot of forums saying a lot of things, and the reason why is they want to make sure that what their comments are saying and doing are appropriate and not embarrassing if they show up in a social media format. So with that, like Darren said, we'll open that part up to questions before we move on.
Mr. Coker, will your document be placed out on the UB site or emailed to members so that we have that for retention and guidance?
That's a great question. And my recommendation is that all documents that are generated through the committee and that are utilized by the committee and as y'all evaluate everything, including this right here, should be sort of kept and maintained on that site so that the public can see them. And so, yes, this right here is a public record that will be available for the public.
That website, who has edit rights to build subfolders and things if necessary?
I will defer to somebody from IT that can answer that.
I can take that question, and Josh can correct me if I'm wrong. But right now, so that site, Darren, you mind if I steal the screen back from you?
Yeah, go ahead. And
real quick, when you speak up, because we're all new, a lot of people are new to this and may not know everybody. Go ahead and state your name and those types of things. That way, next 2 or 3 meetings, we'll all recognize everybody's voice.
Yep.
All right.
Josh, can you give me that access back? While he's loading that up, John McCarter, our interim finance director here. The mayor said he's the liaison for council. I'm the liaison for staff, so you'll be seeing me a lot in these meetings. It's my job to just get the right people in the room and make sure you guys have what you need to reach the decisions that you're getting to. So the website itself, some of you may have already seen this, but here's the city's homepage, pearlandtx.gov. If you go to departments and then water billing in this drop down, there's a banner at the top here. There's also a link over here for Citizen Advisory Ad Hoc Committee. And everything is posted here, will be posted here, and we will get Darren's document up there tonight. Same thing, I'm going to go through a short PowerPoint. We'll add that as well. And then in the future, we'll get those updated before the meetings. So you can have those ahead of time to review. We have the charter listed here along with a little bit of background, and then really more for the public than for you guys, just what they should expect coming out of this page. So, but to get to the question, who can edit this and how is this kept up? Myself, interim director of finance, Nancy, who is our utility billing manager, Dara, our assistant utility billing manager, and Melanie, who is the administrative assistant in finance, have access to edit this. Same thing with Josh, he's our director of communications. So really between all of us, we'll be keeping eyes on this and making sure stuff gets updated.
Hey, Darren. This is Jimmy Davis. I want to make sure you said the communications between and the members of the committee will be subject to public input, but that only pertains to emails that are prefaced around the committee, right? If you and I have an email about something that's not being discussed to the committee, that's not subject, correct?
Okay. Yeah, and well, I'll clarify that in 2 different ways. So first of all, if you and I have a communication just individually, as you and I have before, those emails are subject to public information. Obviously, if somebody wanted my communication, a copy of my communications with you, that would be subject to the Public Information Act. But with specifically, and only reason it would be is because I communicated with you as a city employee. So my email to you would be. With respect to the committee itself, your individual communications with each other, what I was trying to stress is that those technically, and again, this is outside of communications involving the city, those technically would not be subject to the Public Information Act. But for the purpose of transparency, we are encouraging everyone to include on those emails the UBCC as a CC so that we can gather those and so that there's not this concern out there that the transparency is not there. So, but just to let you know, if you sent Mark Smith an email tomorrow, hey, Mark, I thought that meeting was really good last night. I thought we accomplished something. Technically, that email between the two of you is not subject to the Public Information Act. However, like I said, we're just encouraging for the sake of, again, transparency and keeping all information central that we're doing it this way. So can't make y'all do it, but it's just a good recommendation, we think.
Yeah, I was going to say likewise. If Jimmy, you and Ralph are next to me on the screen, and you send an email to Ralph and say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" That's not subject to the act. And so if it's about this committee and it's about the work, and y'all get together and say, "Hey, let's talk about A, B, and C regarding meters," by all means, make sure you put that CC on there, because that's really going to be more about the subject matter that could be an open record. So just use discretion when you do that. And quite honestly, what Darren's going through here is not meant to scare, ruffle anybody. It's just, we want to make sure that everybody is covered in the event, somebody makes a request, and it's just a matter of time before somebody or multiples, multiple requests for certain communications. So we want to make sure that nobody inadvertently gets in trouble here.
All right, sounds good. And an email saying, "Hey, let's meet for lunch to talk about meters." That communication would be subject, but our actual discussion, there's no chance that somebody down the road says, "I want to know what they discussed," because they met as members of the committee to discuss this, correct?
I want to make sure. So you're saying if there was an email about that, about that you would like to discuss that, or are you talking about on a future agenda, or?
Yeah. So if there's an email from one committee member to another, "Let's meet for lunch. I want to discuss meters,"
Right.
whatever it is. So that document, we need to send it to UBCC. If a Public Information Act request comes in, are we then asking for those communications? Is there any potential that we have to give record of what we actually talked about?
The answer to that would be no. The only thing that's relevant is the record itself. Okay. All right, Miracle, if there are any other questions, I can answer them. If not, just let me know.
Yeah, so, if hearing no other real questions about the public information request, and by all means, if you think of a question later and you want to ask something specific, you can reach out to Darren directly through an email and just ask the question. I'd rather you ask a crazy question than not think about, what could impact us, down the road. So just make sure that you reach out if you have a question. Next, I'm just going to
Just real quick, Kevin. Basically, all this, it's not our responsibility to retain.
That's correct.
As a courtesy, you would like first post it into this website to CC just for transparency. Otherwise, public information really has no bearing on transparency.
That's correct.
That's right.
That's correct. The rules I'm held to are far different from what you guys are held to. Just everything that I do is held to the standard. Everything that Darren and staff do is held to the standard. Because you're a member of an advisory committee, you're not. We're just trying to make sure, let's cover ourselves. If you're talking about business, CC that, and then we are for sure covered. You don't have to keep those emails. They're already captured. So we'll move on. Number 3, input and discussion just about timing, format, and
Mayor Cole, I'm going to thank everybody for your time this evening. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the EDC meeting. So thank you all very much.
Okay. So timing, format, and frequency of future meetings, in the document itself, it talks about, no less than once a month. That doesn't mean that we have to be just once a month. If for some reason the committee needed to meet, in the interim or whatever, that's going to be the committee's prerogative. I will say, because we have, this was a kickoff meeting, and from my perspective, I wanted to get you guys on board with this housekeeping now. Let's get the Raftellus report and their presentation on Monday. Have you guys a part of that and you're already on board and a little bit better up to speed. It would be my hope that in the next week, if not the following week, that this committee could meet and look at some of those, I call it low-hanging fruit that's in that Raftellus report, to get it dusted off and to the council as soon as possible. So I would hope we could try to find that we could meet, either this time next week or something, moving forward, and have our first real meeting beyond just a housekeeping meeting. And then the question is, do we want to just go ahead and set the, X Thursday of the month as a placeholder for the next several months? And again, if the committee says, hey, we need to meet in 2 weeks, or staff, we want to ask this question, but we don't want to wait a month, but 2 weeks we can meet. That's for this committee to decide. And then the second thing, format's going to change a little bit. I will say this, staff is in the process of renegotiating some extension, if you will, with Raftellus as the consultant. We will have access, this committee will have access to Raftellus, the consultants, to some extent. If you guys have specific questions of them, I would ask that we get those together. I would like to put them in groups or bunches. And I want to keep their time somewhat limited, because that's actually a meter that's ticking. When we get them on board, that's dollars that we're spending. The city is okay doing that, but I want to limit that. So if we get Raftellus to come into, for example, the next meeting or the following meeting, and you guys have questions, we will try to put them up front. We'll get them first. We'll get them ask questions of them, and then move on. So we're not running up a bill. It's probably going to be some kind of an hourly rate that we have them to answer any kind of questions on their end. Same thing goes with staff. If you've got questions and comments that you really want staff to dig into, some of this would be questions and comments and emails to them saying, hey, can we look at A, B, and C on the next agenda, so that way they've got some heads up coming into it. I will say this, I know we've got agenda items that will be placed 24 hours in advance. Obviously, some of these questions need to be further out than that. It might take, for example, if they're looking and collecting data, it might take a week to collect certain data, or it might take 2 weeks to collect certain data. So keep in mind, if your request is a big data piece, it might take a little more than a day or 36 hours or 48 hours to produce. We do have in-house programmers that can help push that type of information out. But in addition to what they would do to support this group, they're going to be they've got a lot on their plate anyway. So I'll just throw it out there as far as input and discussion on timing, format, and frequency of future meetings.
I have commitments the second Thursday of every month.
Okay.
That's Patrick O'Day.
Yep, that was Patrick.
Mayor Cole, my kind of thought is once a month is really good. Drag things out. Like you said, there's going to be items that's going to take time to gather. You don't want to meet 1 month and say, I want these items, and now get back to me next month. So you have a couple months gone and you're just getting information. Some people may not like it. My suggestion would be every other week. And I was kind of thinking maybe because we've discussed some people may want to meet in person, some may want to be virtual. It was put out there for recording purposes. There's council chambers. I think
Right.
It was mentioned at the last meeting. So I'm almost wondering, what if we agreed to an every other week and maybe it's on the Mondays, there's not a council meeting and maybe it's at 5:30. People that can attend in person, those that want to actually be there so we can have the recordings and everything. Okay. Those that can't, for whatever reason, they can attend virtually. And
I will say, Jimmy, on that train of thought, council chambers is probably the best place for, if we're going to meet in person, for the committee to meet for a number of reasons. Number one, we can properly socially distance. We want to make sure that anybody and everybody that wants to attend, we do this properly, CDC guidelines, those types of things. And we have all of that set up at City Hall. It would be great to take this show on the road and do various meetings across town, but we can't ensure the proper safety everywhere in town. But we can at City Hall because we've been setting that back up for in-person meetings. Secondly, we have all of the IT in place at City Hall to be able to do what we need to do. And especially in the event, we have members that for some reason, let's say they're traveling for business, but have the ability to get online. We can do the hybrid just like we've done for city council meetings. So we have the abilities to do that. We don't have that ability everywhere. So meeting in person at City Hall is the best option for all of the reasons that we just stated. I mean, we might have, again, Raftellus coming in. We're not going to fly them in to answer, questions. We'll get them online. We can do that, right there in city council chambers as an example. So Jimmy's got an idea of off Monday nights for council. I was going to say anything but a Friday night. I don't think anybody wants to spend a Friday evening talking about water billing. Other than that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, time frame of a week. But if we can come up and try to set a schedule moving forward, we have something to look at that we can all put on our calendars. We might end up looking at a particular one, Jimmy, not to steal this, but we might say every other, but we might go, we don't really have anything that we've got to get to in 2 weeks. We can always cancel one. So however we want to do that, that's up to you guys.
If we're going to totally schedule
Cole.
it for every other, any way we could do it during the day, like as a lunch or something.
I'm open anytime. We just set this one towards the end of the day because I wanted to be respectful of people's work day.
Oh, absolutely.
Mayor Cole?
Yeah.
Ralph King.
Hi, Ralph.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking from standpoint is given the situation that we're in,
Mhm.
is moving quickly, at least initially, is probably apropos and correct in order to try to mitigate some of the confusion that's been going on with this issue.
Right.
And a couple of thoughts I had is one from the standpoint of, maybe we do set it up for once a week even. And then if we find that we're moving a little further, then we go every other week.
Right.
And in particular, I don't want to sit here and wait 2 more weeks after we review the Raftellus report in order to start work.
Right.
The other one, recognizing the complex as an issue as it is, and all of the work that's been done before that I and most of us aren't necessarily aware of, I would suggest that we might try to set up an extended workshop at some point early. And we meet at city council chambers with staff and we ask our questions. We might have Raftelis on the line. Y'all go away and answer questions and we come back and we do it again. And from that standpoint, that would maybe help move things along a little more rapidly. Now, it's a little much more free for all, not necessarily agenda driven, but trying to understand exactly what's been done, where we are, where we want to go, most importantly. I think is more of a workshop kind of an environment than as opposed to a quote unquote meeting.
Right.
Okay. So that's just my thought. I'm open
right
almost every day. So that's not a problem. During the day is fine. It may be even argued that we make a subgroup of the committee members and we meet with staff during the day or a Saturday or something where we can actually dive in and get some discussion. I don't doubt that what we're going to do is raise more questions that we get answers. And so that's going to put a workload on staff. And I know that they got a full-time job now.
Right.
So, we just got to be open with trying to make sure that we move the process along as rapidly as we can, but without overburdening the staff.
Right. And Ralph, I think that's, part of my question is at the same time, fast moving is we do have a Raftelis report that requires response. I mean, we spent we spent $100,000 or $98,000 getting this report as a city. So I don't want to set it on the shelf, but we want to move it forward. And exactly. So it would be my hope that if we set a meeting, and I'll just throw it out there as an example, next week after the Raftelis report, are we able to meet, or the following Monday, whatever that 25th,
I think that's more than doable. We really need to do that.
And we can say, hey, council, we bless, 12 or 13 of these, recommendations. Go forth, move forward, staff get it on. And in the meantime, let's really drill in. And what I would ask is if you've got questions around the 3230 plan, especially after Raftelis gives their report on Monday, that because there could be unintended consequences about everything that we choose on that 3230 plan. So we've got to wrestle with that to get a recommendation to council. Council doesn't want to move forward with moving anything on 3230 until they hear from you guys. I will tell you that. They don't want to go forth and say, we're going to do A, B, and C until this group has weighed in on it. But everything with 3230 has budget implications.
Well, and I'll jump in on my 2 cents a minute. The 3230 and what we do with it, there should be no unintended consequences.
Right.
Right. We should be able to fully know if I would decide this is what happens. If we decide this is what happens.
Right.
So this later, oh my goodness, this is what happened, should not happen if we do our job right.
Correct. And I think we're here with the 28-day meter read, most importantly, probably because of unintended consequences, but we want to vet that out. That's part of what we want to make sure that we do. So I appreciate that comment. Other comments on timing, do we set a schedule for we've got one for every other week, we've got one for weekly, we can always back it off. Other comments on how we set forth the timing, or do we set one for the next meeting specifically, and that gives you guys a little bit more. We're hitting this agenda with you guys quickly. I know that. So do we set a next meeting that we can set some expectations for and then jump off on where we want to set these future meetings?
Does anybody have an issue with during the day? Is there anybody in the committee that's not able to make it?
We would have to agree to dates because I'm I work in corporate finance, so I've now work from home and I do have flexibility. So if I know the date and I have an idea of the time frame, I can look at blocking time out. But during the day's not ideal. There are just some days that I can't.
Mayor,
will
can
tell you-
I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
Maybe this is more toward Joshua because I'm thinking, sure, we can all get together and frequency the way we want, but there's also the requirement of being able to record this. So does that mean that we're dependent? I'm sorry, Josh. Are we dependent on Josh to set up the whatever, or are we throwing something on the table and recording it? I think then, if we have to depend upon Josh or someone else within the city, that becomes a layer of respect to their schedule as well, right? Personally, I agree with Ralph. I think we've got to get some steam built, and I think once a week, maybe for the first 2 or 3, 4 weeks, and get the top hitters off on whether we agree with that, but then to just charter out how are we going to plan this attack. And I'm sorry, I was a project manager in my profession, and so that's where my head goes. It's like, what's our plan? What's our milestones? What are we going to tick off here? And so I think we've got to spend at least one meeting trying to get some format and shape of what's our plan of attack, and then build some steam to attack that. And I might be like down the weeds, but that's who I am. So those are my 2 things. Who do we have to depend on to record this? And I agree with Ralph. I think we got to meet once a week, at least for the first few weeks to get it going. Maybe we can go. But, and I'm retired. I can do day or evening, but I want to stand in respect. I know that when I worked, there was absolutely no way I could have done during the day and done a good job.
Josh, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. So, Denise, you are right. It does take effort from my team to get these meetings recorded. One of the reasons that I'm sitting here now is to make sure we have that process sort of locked down. Fortunately, it's not too terribly much different from how we set council meetings. So we can get it set up and then let it just kind of run in the background. So daytime meetings are okay for us. We have enough bandwidth that we can accommodate that. So whatever you decide as a council, I mean, as a committee, we'll find the staff and the resources to accommodate. But you're right, it does take support.
You can set those. Can you set them up to where we could hold the recording and stop the recording? If you got the background work, that's details just to think about. I'm trying to be respectful of you and your staff is all I'm trying to do.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm sure there is a solution there. Full transparency, I'm a bit of a control freak. So we do like to have a hand directly in, especially public meetings. Like tonight we're doing the triplicate recordings to make sure that we have redundancy and things like that. Most of the systems are, they're not necessarily proprietary, but they are sort of locked on the back end. So if we did in council chambers, for example, it requires access to our AV room and all of the equipment in there. So it's easier for us not to burden you with that and just assign somebody to at least start the meeting. But like I said, we can start it, and then when you're done, you let us know and we come back and turn everything off.
Also, just by way of knowing, and I mean, if we can meet for the most part during the day, and if people can do that, I tell you, staff will probably love you just because we're not going deep into the evening. They have plenty of opportunity that meetings can go into the evening. But I will say, in addition to the off-council nights, so that second and fourth Monday of the month, planning and zoning meetings Planning and Zoning Commission have meetings right now. They are meeting virtual, but we don't know when they might start meeting back in person. So we would have to work through, if we do a Monday, that if it's earlier, again, if it's a 5 or 5:30 and we can be done before, they typically meet at 7:30 or 8 or 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. We might be able to get through that. But just know that there's, planning and zoning does meet on the first and third Mondays of the month. I think that's right, Josh, first and third.
You're absolutely right. Yes, it's first and third for planning and zoning. And then if we have a JPH, JSP, and then second and fourth for council.
Right. So we have to work through that calendar in council chambers if we need to. But right now, they're not meeting that way. They're meeting virtual. So we could start that. I think my recommendation to throw out there is let's not plan too far out. Let's plan kind of the next meeting or the next two meetings, and let's get our heads around that. And then that gives you guys more time to think about the ultimate schedule out there. I would throw out there, and again, Josh helped me on the 1st of February. Planning and zoning will meet that day, but are they planning virtual?
I believe they are planning virtual for that meeting.
Okay.
Let me double check the schedule.
And outside of that, and I know Patrick has asked about meeting of the day. Could we go ahead and at least put that on the books towards the end of the day, say the same time, 5 o'clock? That gets it on the schedule. We can figure out exactly where and what we're meeting and discussing. And do we want to do that in person at City Hall, or do we want to do that virtual? I'm open either way. That's up to you guys. I want this to be y'all's committee as well. But I would say to get this item moving forward, I think we set that meeting and we come with some real ideas of how we move our meetings forward over the next several months.
Hey, Mayor Cole, what if we agree, since it's been pointed out, we need to hit Raftellus running. This could be a lot of work to be done quickly. What if we do either next Tuesday or Wednesday meeting to discuss the Raftellus, so we can hit the ground running, get the stuff we agree on that we want to have so council can address it on February 8th. And then maybe February 1st be the following meeting. So we got one next week to agree on all that. And then February 1st, we're hitting the ground running. Here's our game plan. So that could be the next two. I think that covers a lot of what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm here regardless. So I'll let your committee members weigh in on that.
Kevin, this is Steve Sabo. Appreciate the recommendations with regards to front end loading some of these discussions. I certainly think that's appropriate. It may be a little premature, as you said, to reach out beyond the next couple of weeks, because I think it's important we review the charter relative to the recommendations that we're going to hear on Monday night, right? And then we go back to the charter and we look at what the committee's been tasked to do. And then from there, we decide what work needs to be done, what the low-hanging fruit is, and what meetings or time allocation might be required. I tend to agree to those who recommended that meeting early after that report, while it's fresh in our minds, is a good idea. For me personally, unfortunately, I'm out Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on business. I could probably spare an hour or something like that, but it couldn't be a long meeting for me. But the first is good for me, and generally Thursdays and Mondays could work if we wanted to use those days.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor Cole, this is Mark Smith. Just as a prime example of the scheduling issue, I just have to remind you that I have a client meeting coming up that I've got to get on. So
Right.
I apologize. I'm going to bow out of this one. So just let me know when the next meeting is, and I'll be happy to join.
Okay, good. And keep your email handy, and we'll have you at least online for Monday. All right, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Right. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
All right. busy people. So I think just, and the only reason why I want to, and I appreciate the efforts of people, wanting to go ahead and meet early next week. This is a ramp up and trying to get everybody on board, and starting to, jive everybody's schedule. So I think in keeping with that, if we can really look forward to, say, February 1 being our first full meeting where we weigh in on the Raptelis report, it will still be, should still be fresh on everybody's minds. You've had the opportunity. We've sent the Raptelis report out itself. It's chock full of information. So it's not like reading a novel. I mean, you got to dig into it and chew on it a little bit. But at the same time, I think if we can come back on February the 1st, get a meeting set and take care of some of that low hanging fruit, and then we can chart that course moving forward. And maybe, like what Steve said, maybe it's, if people can, it could be that February 1st and February the 4th, 2 meetings in that week, and we can really start fast tracking what we're doing. And I do like Patrick's, comment, if we can do some stuff in the day, and instead of having long meetings in the evening, we can have shorter meetings and knock them out, and be efficient with our time. I think that would be good as well. Keep in mind, whatever we do, we have to post it within 24 hours of the meeting. So 24 hours in advance, excuse me. So we can't set a meeting for tomorrow at 4 because we're outside of that time. So just let's make sure that we understand that we've got to keep with the meeting requirement or the notice requirements.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I can pretty much make almost anything happen. It's easier for me during the day with kids stuff in the evening.
Sure.
But I could do, like 4 o'clock, to where we're not running until 7 o'clock. I mean, my kids go to bed at 8. If quickly, I can do 4 o'clock or 7 in the morning, from 7 to 8 in the morning. At the beginning or the end. That way we don't have to worry about if the meeting runs over an hour and certain people have client meetings that they've set up, and, at least every once in a while, especially
and I will say,
week.
And I will say this, Patrick, thank you for that. I will say that if we do set one and it's a Monday and we're running up against Planning and Zoning Commission, for example, if we do set it a little bit earlier, even if it's 4 o'clock or that late afternoon time, that's going to help us make sure that we get our work done if we're conflicting with them in any way. So, but I'd like to listen, Jennifer, Julie, anybody else have some thoughts on that?
I'm open on the meetings, whatever's going to be flexible for the rest of the committee.
Okay. Julie?
Yeah, I can, I do my best to be flexible.
Sure.
Of course, daytime is a little bit more difficult just because of work obligations. In the evenings, having the virtual option is helpful. Again, there are kid obligations and things like that, but as long as I can be plugged in from the car or, anywhere else, I'm open. I'm open to that.
So why don't we do this? Let me throw this on the table, and then that way we can set. So why don't we look at February the 1st as our first full meeting? I like Patrick's idea of maybe say 4 o'clock if people can make that happen. It's towards the end of the day. It's not full-fledged in the middle of the day. I don't know if anybody's got a hard-pressed meeting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 1st. If we can do that, we can get something set, and we'll get an agenda out where we know we're going to press forward on some of these recommendations. We can hear that next week from Raptelis, and we can dispense of maybe some of this low-hanging fruit early. And as I call it, thread a needle through everybody's schedule and get this thing going. And then in the meantime, we can set if y'all are ready to do something with the vice chair, we can do that now, or we can do that maybe at that meeting. You guys are just now getting an opportunity to meet everyone. And it's a little unfair to just say, here it is.
But don't we have to
Mayor,
nominate Mark since he left early?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Ralph King.
Yeah, Ralph.
Just real quick, maybe help me out a little bit. Can we do a little committee introduction?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why don't we do that? Ralph, go ahead and start. And again, not to belabor this deep into the evening, but tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, yeah, I'm Ralph King. I'm a semi-retired consulting engineer. I'm a geek. And I got interested in this, and where we got flooded in Harvey, we lived in Friendswood, and we moved to Pearland into a new house in Baker's Landing. And I started getting my water bills, and then that took my attention.
Right.
And just as a little bit of a background, I'm retired. Worked 35 years for Lyondell, Basell, and the legacy companies. I retired and started consulting, and I'll be consulting 9 years next month with Stress Engineering. My background is very apropos for what we are trying to do, because I used to manage utility system at Chocolate Bio, and we had billing problems with Monsanto, with metering problems. Right. And so we do root cause, and I make my living doing root cause failure analysis. Right. So what went wrong? How did it go wrong? What's the issues caused by Apollo root cause and Trago? Those are two different root cause methodologies, right. Participant. So I do that kind of thing. So that's my interest, is personal. I want to know what's going on with my bill. And then, of course, as a taxpayer, and I look at this and I go, okay, so now what's happening here? So that's my background.
Good. Ralph, that's good. That's good. And I appreciate that. Jimmy, I'm just going to move across my screen. That way, I don't know what everybody's screen looks like. I'll just call on you one-on-one. Jimmy Davis.
Okay, I'm Jimmy Davis. I've lived in Pearland almost 8 years next month. I work in finance for a utility company, a utility provider. I have been in this industry, I guess, 15 years. Operations, finance, sales, accounting, billing. Current role, a lot of what I do is contract compliance, developing custom billing solutions for customers. So customer has funky stuff going on and they need something a bit more predictable. I look at what we do and develop a custom billing solution for them. My background is Six Sigma, so I am very heavily process, root cause oriented. A lot of what I do in my company also is identifying process inefficiencies, developing SOPs, looking at, I speak lawyer, I've been told, so I help lawyers in drafting contracts, interpret contract language, and look at how do we take what we put in a contract, how do we properly implement it, how do we properly deliver the product to the customer and bill them for it, and if they have questions, how do I explain it to them?
Right.
In the interest of transparency. Water billing, I got involved with this actually in January. Before this became a thing, I was asking water bill questions. While I was paying before, 2 days before Valentine's, I was paying for water used before Thanksgiving. And the ensuing debacle that came as a result of the explanation and all the Cycle 11 people having 2 bills due in February.
Right.
I've been involved with water billing since late January, so a year now. started a group because I saw a bunch of people upset about water billing. So we started this little Facebook group called Pearland Water Billing Discussion Group that's today over 1,100 Pearlanders with water billing issues. So, and I just try to help the residents make sense, identify areas of improvement, identify operations, how do they match up to city ordinances, where are we not following city ordinance, bring those to light. Get things fixed.
Julie, we'll move to you.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Julie Ward. I've been a resident of Pearland for about 6.5 years now. I live in Shadow Creek Ranch. By education and my background, I am a licensed architect. However, the past, 7 years or so, I work as a commercial developer. So I do ground up development. I handle a lot of public utility extensions, road work, private utility extensions as well. So I have an understanding of the process from an owner side as well as the city side. I'm also heavily involved in the Association of Water Board Directors, AWBD. I'm as well as a MUD director within Shadow Creek Ranch.
Good deal. Denise, you're next up on my screen.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Denise Hewitt. I'm a 38-year employee of CenterPoint Energy. During the deployment of the smart meters, I was a program manager in the technology program oversight office. I was responsible for all processes, risks, issues, Tiger Team, strike teams. I also was a liaison to the Department of Energy for $250 million stimulus and reported weekly to the White House and the Office of Management and Budget. I'm incredibly familiar with the process of digital meters, from the meter itself, the implementation, all the issues, interfacing with systems on through to out to billing. So I have a pretty good, strong background to bring. Project management is my specialty. And I've been here since 1983, and that's probably longer than we all been around. So I'm old.
But we love you nonetheless. How's that? Jennifer, next up.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sheffield. I'm coming in as a customer just to help understand and find resolution, hopefully, to this billing issue. I do have a background from work from audit and contract compliance. I am a kind of nut for data and information. I like seeing where there's errors in a system that's being built and try to see where the discrepancy is and figure out a solution. And that's all.
Good. Patrick? Nope.
Man, I'm just talking away. So
there you go.
My name's Patrick Odell. I've been in Pearland for over 40 years, since I was born. I own a company called Drilling Company. We construct water wells, water plants from the very beginning, from the stages of some CCEQ all the way through the operation stage. We do some shallow oil and gas stuff. I've been a partner in owning a water utility systems, and that's pretty much it.
Good. So you have a knowledge of water. Steve?
Thanks, Mayor Cole. It's a little bit funny saying that.
It's still funny hearing it.
Yeah. I've known Kevin for a while. I haven't been in Pearland as long as Patrick, but I got here as fast as I could. I've been around for about 30 years. I am an ex-councilman. I was on city council from 2004 to 2010 or thereabouts. And really appreciated my experience with the city. I was on the EDC prior to that. and was glad to retire when my time was served. So Kevin, I have no idea why you keep coming back. I'm a serial entrepreneur and have I have a couple of companies that I own, and one that I'm proud to work with both of my daughters, who are now past college, and it's fun working with them. My focus is really on turnarounds, working with troubled or distressed companies, and helping them kind of transition through to success. I'm happy to be on the committee here with a lot of smart people with a lot of relevant experience, and I think my role here is really going to be one of kind of process and driving to conclusion, and making sure that we have a quality and concise product to put in front of the city council.
Good deal. And Mark Smith, who had to jump off, is an attorney in private practice. He's also the past chair of the Chamber of Commerce. So he kind of brings in the business side of things, or at least representing business. I know Steve owns a few businesses as well. Patrick's a business owner. So it's important that not only are we dealing with the residential side of things, but also the business side. This is an enterprise. And so I think hopefully everybody on board can see the thoughtfulness that myself, as well as the two other council members, went through in selecting committee. We actually enlarged the committee by a handful, just simply because we had talented people that could provide incredible service to this committee. So it went a little bit larger than we wanted, but we did it to make sure that we had, again, good, talented people to do that. I'm going to go back, and Ralph, thank you for letting us and bringing that up to let everybody kind of tout their resume a little bit about who they are. I will say, I still think we need to go ahead and set February 1 as a meeting. If 4 o'clock works, let's do that. Let's go ahead and do it virtually for this first couple of meetings, so we can get in the routine of meeting. And then if we can meet in person, we can do that. But let's get that on the books by way of input and discussion. And we'll come back to presentation. John, I want to keep y'all's presentation fairly short, because I don't want to go deep into the evening with everyone on this first meeting. But I think the next meeting goals and information that we need to come up with is, we'll all have seen and heard the Raftellus report. You guys have the Raftellus report itself. You have the staff response. I would want to come into that meeting, and first and foremost, what can we dispense of as far as recommendations are concerned to the council? I like Jimmy's thoughts. If we can turn that around and give it to council by the 8th, we should be able to do that. Council has had this report since before you guys have, so council has already seen this, but they're going to wait on some of your responses to do to move them forward. So with that, do we have a recommendation to go ahead and meet on February the 1st?
I'll make a recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to go ahead and meet on, and I'm saying at 4 o'clock, if that's fine.
It's good.
Okay. So any objection to that? Other than that, we will set it. Staff, let's go ahead and we can talk internally about exactly what that agenda will look like. So we post it. We'll do that before. I guess it'll have to be Friday before that Monday. Which is fine as well. We'll talk about exactly what that agenda will look like. With that, yes.
I wanted to, here I am to make an assignment to you.
Yeah.
On a task.
Sure.
So you'll be responsible, at least making sure we get the February 1st up. But then secondly, on ours, do we need to make reference to Raftellus being at the council meeting? So if people are going to the utility billing, whatever we are, spot, that they'll know that Raftellus is at the council. So should you do 2 actions?
Well, actually, we can set a meeting for the Raftellus, I guess the 25th, that Monday. John, help me. We can do that. That the committee itself is while it's not maybe a formal meeting, they are attending the Raftellus report, whether virtually or
that website, right? You'd want them.
right.
No,
That way it's up as an act, not necessarily as an action item, but it is a notification to the people that to the residents that this meeting or this committee is meeting and attending the Raftellus report on Monday, the 25th. So John, maybe we need to do that. We need to do that before Monday. So between now and Friday, well, tomorrow's Friday. So we need to.
Yeah, I think what you could do is on here, what I'll do is I'll stick the date here and just add an asterisk. And then under the meeting documents, how about I put a link and it'll just go to the city council agenda item with just a little blurb that, it's not a typical meeting, but it's applicable.
Right.
So I'll have that done tomorrow morning.
Okay.
That agenda is out there tonight. So
That's a good catch, Denise. And then on the 1st, we'll have that coming out to everybody as well as more of a full committee meeting. And then we can chart the course after that.
Hey, Kevin, I wanted to bring up to you and staff potentially from a housekeeping perspective. Certainly out of the Raftellus presentation and after reviewing it, I've got a list of questions and, some information requests. I'm sure everybody else on the committee does too. Yep. I sense we really need some kind of a tool, whether it's a whiteboard or something like that in order to kind of organize ourselves, to compile our questions, to look for commonalities, to be able to streamline our process, as you mentioned earlier, so that we can as quickly as possible say, hey, here's the committee's list of questions, here's the information requests we have, so we don't have to verbally present that, at a meeting like this every time, because it could take hours the first couple.
Right. So maybe what we do, Steve, if like yourself, if you've got a list of things now, and other committee members have a list now, maybe we set, between now and Tuesday or Wednesday of next week to get those into, John, do they need to come to you and Nancy?
yeah, if they come to me and Nancy, that'll make sure that we both grab it, and we'll keep one central repository.
And then obviously, Steve, 4 of you may have the same question and concern. So we compile those together as a list.
Is there a way that we can have a shared document hosted by Pearland?
Let me take
share
it as a,
or something where we could manage putting together a document, right?
We do have SharePoint, so I'll leave that to the IT guys to figure out.
Yeah, my suggestion would be is you put, I already sent y'all some of my straw man.
Right.
It's to put one set of documents out there, one for questions to the Raftellus report, maybe one from a standpoint of the staff questions we may have based on the response. And then we can just go in there and look at it, upload it, put track changes on it so that we know who made what comment. And then we've got a critical mass to be able to develop one single document instead of trying to coordinate multiple documents.
So, John, what does that look like from Dan's perspective on accessing SharePoint for all the committee members?
I might have to have Dan correct me here, but I believe SharePoint is internal to Pearland. So I don't know that we could do that externally. So I think I have to take that as a follow-up, but I hear what you guys are saying. We do have SharePoint and we have OneDrive too. So I think we can share a document. Let me take that as a follow-up to make sure it works and that we got something that's going to work.
I think it depends,
just for clarification.
John, on I think just how you configure, this is Denise, how you do an external email. It's just your wall or not.
Right.
Well, so we're on the government license for SharePoint, obviously, and there are different restrictions than your traditional SharePoint, because we have talked about SharePoint sites being externally facing potentially. And that's a limitation that we've had in the past. It may be different with documents, but yeah, I'm sure Dan can clarify that.
So why don't we have Dan look into that about what we can or can't have access to, and then get, back out to the committee on what we can do as far as SharePoint or OneDrive, either one. That way we can be working. In the meantime, don't hesitate. Let's get your questions and comments about various things kind of rolling. That way we can get staff on board.
Who are we going to send all those questions to? So that way
We're
it goes
gonna send them
first
to
and they
John McCarter and Nancy Massey.
Okay, and then they'll distribute to whoever it needs to go to answer it.
Correct. Right.
Would it be easier just to send it to the UBCC email?
Or why don't we work on this internally as a team? Concise document. One of us internally takes that, gather and put it together. Just a thought.
I guess, Ralph, for now, let's CC the UBCC on all those questions, but let's get them to that. But if we can do it as a clearinghouse, let's let IT and communications figure out what's the best way to do that. But for now, I don't want to hesitate on people getting their questions in and comments in. That way we can start compiling that.
Well, I've got a list of the review, a marked up PDF of the Brett Tillis report.
Right.
And I've got a presentation as to I personally developed my list of what is it, how do I go through my work process?
Right.
And I can share that out to the committee and copy in the UBCC. And then it's a good straw man. It's a starting point.
It's a good starting point. Exactly. So with that, John and Nancy, can you do again, it's 6:45. Can you do a quick kind of overview on that one? Like I said, I don't want to belabor everybody's evening.
Yeah.
It's been a good meeting, folks.
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm sorry, I'm having microphone issues over here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So we got a PowerPoint. I promise I'll move quick because like the mayor said, it's getting late. So I'm John McCarter. I'm interim finance director here with the city. I think the goal here with this PowerPoint, and this will be out on the website tonight that you guys can go and access. Let me get my screen shared here. So there's a lot of information here, but like I said, we'll stick this out on the website. This isn't the last time we'll talk. So just a quick overview of what we'll go over. First, staffing. I'll breeze through those. We already talked about that, so we won't spend much time there. Talk about the structure of the department itself to give you kind of an idea of where utility billing falls in the city as a whole. Nancy will do a quick billing process overview. So how should the billing process work? And then we'll do a kind of Pearland utility billing history 101. To Mr. King's point, there is a ton of information out there and it can be very complex. So this is not everything, but it's an inkling to kind of get you guys started and at least start down that road to try to educate and lay a good base there for you all. So staffing intros. We met Nancy earlier, utility billing manager. She joined us, I believe, in May of this year. Dara, our assistant utility billing manager, joined us shortly after that. Lori Flores, not on the line tonight, but still a leader in our department, customer service supervisor, joined us, I believe it was in July. Jennifer Quiroga, billing supervisor, been with the city a long time as a billing employee, just recently reclassified to billing supervisor, and then me, interim finance director, John McCarter. This is kind of the leadership team in the utility billing world right now. Utility billing as a whole, when we talk about UB, we kind of refer to it as its own department, but it's not. It's embedded in our finance department. So here's the overall structure of the finance department. Utility billing has 17 employees. You can see off in the blue, with Nancy and her crew kind of leading 2 distinct units, billing and customer service, that have a ton of overlap and work very closely together. Nancy, you want to take it from here?
I sure can. Hi, everyone. It's Nancy Massey. I'm the utility billing manager. I've probably spoken to some of y'all most of the time and lots of times. Overall, we have 4 billing cycles that handle over 38,000 water accounts, and the chart to the right of that indicates where you've seen the growth over the past 3 fiscal years. So you can take a look at that later. We handle not only billing, but exception billing, which is the move outs and the out of cycle bills. Next screen. This is just an overview of what the billing summary does, what we do in billing. You know, it's not only the billing itself, but it's the maintenance, the work orders that we do, the reports that we run. We input the rates as well. Next one. And then this is an overview of the delinquency process. When we run the delinquency process, we add the late fees, we run the campaign for the first phone calls, we process the delinquent letters, and then a week before the shutoffs, we run the shutoff phone calls, and then we create the work orders for the delinquencies to shut off water. That was just an overview quickly of what we do. Next one. This is the quick overview of the billing process itself. Right now in the 3230 plan, all meters are read on the 32nd billing day or the 32nd read day. Then those readings are brought in, they're reviewed, then we initiate work orders for manual reads for any missed skips and any questions that we have on those. We manually complete those work orders. They return them back to utility billing so we can put them into the billing cycle. Then we process billing reports. So this is a high level that I'm doing because there's a lot of billing reports that we run so we can try to catch everything we can. We calculate the bills. We validate the rates manually on a selection of accounts by type. Next screen. We do an audit where we compare the previous bill to the current bill. We do an audit listing. That audit listing that shows that those bills are really high, we send those to the customer service department where Lori sends them out to her staff to contact the customers. And that's on top of the fact that we do the top 25 customers that are been high on their usage as well. We also, at that point, we process a billing register, and then we process a print file that goes to the vendor. That goes to the vendor, then the vendor sends that back to us and we verify that information to be correct. And then we send an approval, if it's correct, back to the vendor to let them know to go ahead and print and mail. We post the billing into the billing system, and at that same time, it processes the e-bills. After billing is done, we process an out-of-cycle bills. If anything that was missed or skipped that didn't hit the billing cycle, because we're not going to wait on 1 or 2 or 10 reads. We're going to get billing out on a timely basis. We run a report called the unbilled accounts. And then we also run a process billing validation report, which validates all the accounts billed or listed in the unbilled account. Unbilled accounts would be new accounts that wouldn't be billed at the time because it's not enough days in that billing period for them. We like to build new accounts at 9 days or more. Go ahead, John.
All right, I'll take it from here. The next 4 slides have a lot of information on them. Like I said, we'll post this out there on that website, and I'll let you guys know when that's up there. So don't feel like you got to catch everything. Again, in the spirit of getting out of here at a decent hour, I'm going to go kind of fast. So the goal here on this slide is to basically go back the last kind of 4 years and say, where have we been, and what are kind of the major milestones and maybe things that you guys as committee members should know about. In a nutshell. Again, there's a lot more than this, but this is kind of a starting point for us. First of all, back in 2017, April, we went live in our new billing system, called New World Systems. This was part of a larger citywide ERP conversion for our financials, our community development, HR payroll, and utility billing. In March 2018 is when the Advanced Metering Infrastructure, or AMI, contract was approved by City Council. These are the new smart meters that you have had installed in your homes. In July 2018, this was probably one to highlight. This was when the first 28-day read cycle was conducted. And this was kind of the root cause, if you will, or the thing with unintended consequences, because we kept billing monthly. Each billing cycle kind of added to the gap between when bills or meters were read and when they were billed. And that grew over time until December 2019, January 2020, through the annual audit. The arrearage was discovered basically through our year-end process, reported up to City Council. And then in February, really through April of 2020, there were many City Council discussions on the topic. You can go back and watch those if you'd like. They are very lengthy, and there's quite a few of them. At the same time, we did suspend delinquent processing, so no late fees, no disconnections at that point. April of 2020, the 3230 plan was approved by City Council. I don't have it on here, but in August was the first bills that went out with the 3230. And then in August 2020, we had our first utility billing quarterly update, a nice agenda request to go back if you want to do a deep dive into some of this stuff. There's a lot there. I believe it was the August 23rd meeting. And the award of the Raftellus Utility Billing Systems and Management Review as well. October 2020, we resumed the delinquency processing that was charging late fees, and then the disconnections occurred for the first time in December. November 2020, we had the second utility billing quarterly update, just another reference point if you guys want to go read more about that. December 2020, that Raftellus report was completed, sent to council the week before Christmas, and posted up on the website as well. And then January 2020 kind of brings us to where we are now. Ad hoc committee was approved by City Council. Raftellus reports coming to City Council, and that AMI project is really wrapping up with the installation of the meters completed, and we're moving into testing and making sure that all that stuff is talking to one another. What I think is one of the more important slides, and probably our biggest challenge as a department or division in utility billing, is staffing. The biggest challenge we faced in this division in the last several years has been staffing changes. And if you just look over the last year since spring 2020, every utility billing supervisor position has turned over. There's a new face in it. That's our customer service supervisor, our assistant manager, finance director, and I'm just an interim at this point. The deputy city manager has also left, who was the representative in the city manager's office, and finance now reports up to the city manager's office. So a lot of new faces just in the last year, trying to kind of reorient and put us on a path to success going forward. And then most recently through the budget, we reorganized the billing division. That was a reclassification of a lead billing specialist, Jennifer, to billing supervisor, to create a dedicated accountable manager for that division that hadn't been there before. And then the addition of 2 additional billing specialists. We have 1 for each cycle, and then we brought the delinquency processing within billing, so it's all under 1 unit, again, to kind of centralize that accountability. You know, a challenge that just exists with some of the jobs that you know, they're compensated fairly, but the wages aren't as high as in other places, is we see pretty high turnover with customer service representatives as well, something we focused on, we're working on, trying to improve on. So what have we been doing? You know, recent changes in progress. You can read more about these with the quarterly updates that we've had before, but really trying to live up to the mandate to continuously improve and proactively seek out ways to improve these processes. That's internal, that's external, that's not using precedent as a reason to do something. You know, with the arrearage where it is, with the 3230 plan rolling out, you know, we have kind of had to reinvent the game a little bit, because in a typical utility bill, it's you bill once a month because you read once a month and your customer pays once a month. Well, you know, we're not operating on that schedule anymore. So we're really focusing on culture changes as well. I won't go through all these, but we're trying to build a culture of continuous improvement, trying to build a culture to get better and make sure we're engaging our staff in that process as well. We've had process changes. Again, I won't go through all these, but just making sure that we are thinking from a process perspective, mapping things out. We've done some internal Lean Six Sigma training. We have a lean team internally that we've just engaged with recently to start to make sure that things we're doing make sense. Additional checkpoints in the billing and making sure we're taking care of our escalated issues when they come through. And then lastly, customer-centric changes to policies. Throughout all this, you know, we talk about trust and building that back. We've been trying to do that through being customer-centric, adjusting our policies where we need to account for the arrearage, providing payment plans and extensions, doing, you know, testing on meters with no charge to the customer. Those types of things have been really important. So again, that was just a quick update review through there. So I'll leave it there and I'll hand it back to you, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, John, real quick, I'm just going to ask if you could send out the to everyone through the email the quarterly presentations. I think we have all of that in city council meetings. It's actually, I know they can find it online, but it'd be real nice if you just sent that to them. They could at least see those in this process. So I think, as everybody can see, and we can throw it open to questions, but I think as everybody can see, it's more complex than just what a 28-day meter read caused. So we've changed software. So since 2017, we've changed software. Now we've changed meters. we had a 28-day meter read issue that caused a billing lag. So what you'll find in the Raftellus report is it comes out and says it's not just one issue that we can flip a switch and fix everything. There's multiple things that have kind of caused the problems. I will say this, from my perspective, if you look at that timeline of everything that's gone on, the Raftellus report, and Raftellus should have probably been brought in, not should have, it's my opinion, they should have been brought in back in March, not waiting till April or August or September to get them. And so the only thing I would say is we should be having this discussion 6 or 7 months ago as opposed to now. But having said that, it is what it is. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and belabor and do all that. It is what it is. It is my my call and my what I've told folks back during my campaign, that I'm going to do everything in my power and every single day to do what I can to fix the issues, and most importantly, reestablish faith and trust in the utility billing system. The biggest issue that our city has faced is people don't trust it. So trust has been broken. John and Nancy and the rest of their staff, they know that. They experience that. They talk to customers every single day. They know it. They're dedicated to doing what we can to build trust back into this system. One of the 5 pillars of our city is being a trust builder. Trust was broken, and it's our job to build that trust back. The reason you're here is to help do that. I can't do it by myself. It's going to take a team effort. It's going to take all of us to make sure that we do it. And it's real important. And the reason the citizens group is back here is the citizens were really, COVID couldn't have happened at a worse time relative to utility billing. This all came to light, and the next thing you know, COVID happens and everybody is in virtual world. So it really removed everybody from the equation. So getting the citizens back in the middle of this, being a part of the solution, was very, very important to me, which is why we created this group. So I'm dedicated to do this. I will tell you, and staff knows this, there's very few days that have gone by in the last 2 months that I haven't had a question or concern or comments about utility billing. So it's something that I'm dedicated to do. That, and then secondly, making sure that we get vaccines in arms across our city to help get this COVID pandemic beyond us. With that, I don't want to, again, belabor our evening. We're now here 2 hours, and I want to make sure that this was a good, positive meeting to talk about from where we are. You can see the complexity of where we are, but at the same time, I think we've got some great work ahead of us. And I will just say this, there's going to be a day and time out here in the future where we're all going to be very proud of the work that this committee has done. And I'll just tell you from my perspective and on behalf of the city council, I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for being a part of this, saying yes to this. And I can't wait to just see the work as it unfolds as we move forward.
Can the presentation that was just sent be emailed along when they send the videos from those meetings? Can they just include that presentation too?
John, did you get that?
Yep, not a problem.
And in addition to that, Jimmy, just if any citizen wants to see it, what John is also saying is they'll have that presentation up on website as well. Anything else?
Just to carry on this, Ralph.
Yeah.
Just carry on your thought a minute. With Jimmy's help, I put a survey out on the Facebook water group. And out of the people that responded, about 2/3 said that they had water billing issues.
Yeah.
One way, and of that, half of those were due to high bills.
Right.
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 And one of the things, and this is more for the staff's heads up in my view, is that the Ratillis report 3230 and all of that's important, and from a financial standpoint, absolutely important. But the biggest key issue that's causing the issues with the citizens of Pearland is the inability to explain the bills. And for unexplained reasons, having high consumptions.
Right.
And that's the challenge we have. And I think that, and Ratillis kind of talks about it just slightly, but the reality of it is they focus on the 3230 plan and those other issues. And I think the challenge that we've got, once we get the quick wins off the table, is going to have to focus on that issue. So.
And to Ralph's point, when they get the high bill and they call about it, the lack of availability of the data, the consumption data, because, oh, sorry, that was 60, 70 days ago and we don't have that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a real source of consternation.
Okay.
So, and of course,
if you can't defend the bill, you immediately lose trust.
Yep.
So, and that's, that goes to the core of the problem.
Yeah, and I think what you'll see in the Ratillis report is the 3230 plan simply exacerbates, even though it was meant to slowly ease back the billing lag, it actually exacerbates many of the other problems that are existing out there. So it has its own set of problems on top of fixing the billing lag. So if anybody doesn't have anything else, I'd like to kind of close our meeting out for tonight. I like I said, on behalf of myself and the council, we can't thank you guys as customers and as citizens in our community taking this up and working on it with us and being a part of this solution. I think it's something that's been desperately needed for the last 6 or 8 months. And even though that is what it is, we're here tonight. And so now it's upon us to take this and move it forward and do all that. So between now and again, even next week on Monday, look in your inbox. You'll see an invite to be a part of that meeting on Monday night and watch. And I will say it's the first new business item on the agenda. So, and our agenda is not super long Monday night. We tried to keep it light so we could really dive into the Ratillis report. But get your questions, comments, concerns, what you've got on the table to staff, both John and Nancy. We'll work through the document sharing component of this. As we move forward, we'll figure that out and see how we have to do that. So does anybody have anything else? All right. Well, guys, thank you again. I can't thank you enough. And I can't wait to, like I said, somewhere down here in the future, well, this will all be fixed and we'll look back and everybody did a good work. Okay. We appreciate your work.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
there you go.